Good evening, everyone, and welcome to our webinar, Options for Anchorage Correspondence School Families. Thank you all for joining us. I'm Sarah Montalbano, the Education Policy Analyst at Alaska Policy Forum. Alaska Policy Forum is a nonprofit that educates about school choice issues, including Alaska's correspondence school programs. Today's webinar is being recorded and streamed live to our Facebook page. The recording will be available later on our website as well as on Facebook, so please share the recording with anyone who may be interested. After our introduction, we will hear from speakers representing 3 different options for Anchorage families. Then we will take the remaining 15 to 20 minutes for questions and answers. To ask a question at any time, please type it into the Q&A box. Questions may be limited by time. Before we hear from our presenters, let's get some background information from APF CEO Bethany Markham.
Good evening, everyone, and thank you, Sarah. Thank you all for joining us. So in Alaska, the words correspondence school are often used synonymously with homeschool, but that's not really the full picture. And while it's true that Alaska's correspondence programs certainly accommodate full-time homeschooling families, they also offer much more. 9 years ago, the law was changed in Alaska to better accommodate the needs of more families. So the programs that exist now allow parents to choose from a very broad range of structures that best fit the needs of the family and the student. These include structures like hybrid online plus homeschool, or full-time private school, part-time private school plus homeschool, part-time private school plus regular neighborhood school. Those are just a few of the options. There's much more available. And some of the correspondence programs offer nearly all of these options, but some of them only offer a few and are more restrictive. Some of the correspondence programs only serve one regional school district area, but many of Alaska's correspondence programs serve students who reside anywhere in the state. Some of the programs conduct a lottery, but some of them do not. In short, there are many different programs with many different offerings, so families can shop around to find the right fit for their children. Alaska Policy Forum is going to be publishing a website very soon to help Alaska families find the right correspondence program for their family. What it does is it walks parents through a very short questionnaire, and it asks them about their family's unique needs and desires. And then it recommends the correspondence programs that most closely fit those needs and desires. So if you'd like to receive notice when this free tool is available, be sure to sign up using the QR code shown at the end of this webinar, or you can email us at info@alaskapolicyforum.org. So all of you know that recently the Anchorage School District published a memo, and it stated that it would no longer provide any allotment funds to correspondence school students who are enrolled full-time in private schools. Now that decision is based upon their own legal interpretation, their own opinion, but different legal interpretations of how the programs can operate have been made by the state and other districts. In fact, several Alaska correspondence families are being represented by attorneys through a motion to intervene in a very important lawsuit that could establish a strong precedent protecting Alaska's unique correspondence school allotment system. If you're interested in learning more about that lawsuit, we'll provide you with a link at the end of this webinar so that you can watch it. Right now, for families that are affected by ASD's new restrictions, the most important thing to know is that Anchorage families do not have to be forced into the school structures that ASD prefers. Anchorage families have many options. On a page within our Alaska Policy Forum website, we've listed all Alaska correspondence schools which partner with private schools and noted which of those accept statewide enrollees per their response to our inquiries. And if you're on the line here with a correspondence school that's not listed there, and this is the case, please reach out to us. We have reached out to all the correspondence schools, but we have not heard from all of them. This has been an ongoing project we've been doing for about a year now. Sarah just dropped the link to that webpage in our chat. So you're welcome to take a look at that. But keep in mind that is just a list of the correspondence programs. That is separate from the full separate website that will have the questionnaire tool that's going to be available in the next few weeks. Because there is an option to roll over and bank allotment funds, it's important for families to really choose the right program that's best for their family from the very beginning of a student's education. Right now, per state law, if a student transfers from one correspondence program to another, all of the banked allotment funds go away. And that's the predicament that many ASD families find themselves in today. We know that ASD families were very dismayed by the recent news, but there are options if your family was affected. And so without further delay, let's hear about some of those. We're happy to welcome our speakers. First is Stacy McIntosh, principal of Mat-Su Central School. Stacy?
Hi. First of all, I want to thank you guys just for taking the time to learn about our programs. I think the most important work you guys do is educating your kids and to take your time out of a busy schedule, and it's beautiful outside. So thank you for being here tonight and listening to us talk about our programs. Like she said, my name is Stacy McIntosh. I have been in education about 25 years. I have been at Mat-Su Central for 10 years. I started out as an advisor there, which I think is super helpful now that I'm the principal, knowing that role. And I've been in administration for 4 years now at Mat-Su Central. So Mat-Su Central is a public school in the Mat-Su Borough School District. We were founded over 50 years ago, so we've been around a long time. We were originally founded to support students in remote locations across the district. And since then, we have grown tremendously. We now serve over 2,400 students in the Mat-Su Borough School District. So we are the largest school in the Mat-Su Borough. We are based in Wasilla, and we have a satellite office in Palmer, Alaska, where we host some of our classes and have some of our advisors there as well. We are opening a new school in about a year, and we're pretty excited about that because we currently lease our building. So we've never had a school of our own. So we're very excited to open our new building and have all of our program in one location, which is very centrally located in the Mat-Su Valley. We are a statewide program, so anyone in the state of Alaska can enroll with us. We partner with almost 300 community partners and they instructional partners, and they really help support our students. So if there's something we can't teach kids, someone in the community can, you know, if there's some like sewing or rock climbing, things we can't do within our building, we really rely on those instructional partners to help support our families and educate them. As far as allotment goes, we provide $3,000 for 9th through 12th graders and $2,600 for kindergarten through 8th graders. We just increased that number last year, and we had been pretty similar the time before that. So I know we get a lot of questions of, are you guys going to raise that? We just raised it last year, so I'm assuming that we're going to stay pretty similar for the next few years. Student at Mat-Su Central can enroll full-time in a private school and still receive a full allotment. So that is something you can do. Allotment can pay for anything that can be connected to a course on your ILP, your individual learning plan. That is secular, that is not religious. So if a student has, for example, PE on their ILP, they could get, they could use that allotment for hockey, for rock climbing, for school sports, things like that. I think it's really important that you guys know how we vet our classes that our private schools teach. So when a private school wants to become an instructional partner of ours, we meet with them, we sit down, we go through curriculum, we talk about classes, and we collaborate with them a lot and become a partner with them. So we can decide which courses can be reimbursed for the families, which ones can be covered. If the curriculum is religious, that class isn't eligible to be reimbursed through the allotment. Some of the common classes that we reimburse are math, art, home ec, foreign language, PE. Well, we have a lot of juniors and seniors now that are, it's becoming really popular to take college classes. So that allotment could pay for some of those college classes, which I think is really beneficial to kids. We have specific advisors in our building that work with our private schools. And so they'll have all of Holy Rosary or all of Anchorage Christian School, which is now Mountain City. I'm gonna keep saying Anchorage Christian in my mind. So they build that relationship with the administration at those schools and also the families, which I think is a great model. Our advisors help the school create the receipts for the parents. They walk them through that so they know how to submit those receipts. Again, for those classes that are not religious, that can be reimbursed. We want to make sure we're always following state regulations. We're constantly in contact with the state to make sure that we're following what's supposed to be followed. That's really important to us. The advisor also works with families to make sure they know how to submit grades. A lot of our private schools that we work with are accredited, so those grades, that makes it really easy to approve those grades. Students will receive a full allotment if they are registered with the district by September 30th. So we have open enrollment year round, so people can enroll in our program year round. And after January, we have quite a few that still come to us. And so what we do with them, we don't want to just have zero allotment. So by cutting off that September 30th allotment time, we have money, we have $500 that we give advisors. When we get someone who enrolls in January, the advisors get $500 to use for curriculum for that family, for those kids. We know it's really hard for families sometimes to support that, and they don't have money to do that. So there's no fund money. You can't use any money for PE or different things, but we'll have that $500 so you can at least get curriculum for your kids. I would also like to talk about proficiency. If a student is proficient in reading, writing, and math, all of the allotment may be used to support their ILP classes, and parents really have greater freedom in how that allotment is used. If a student's behind in reading, writing, math, obviously we need an MTSS plan. We have to modify the ILP. We maybe change classes, we change curriculum. We may encourage parents to get some tutoring if that kid is below proficient. We partner with their parents, and they get to choose the assessment that they want to take to show that their kids are proficient. Some of the assessments that we use are the same ones the state use. We do Ames Web, we do map testing. We have AK Star, iReady. And then we also will take those assessments. I know some of the private schools use Terra Nova. A lot of the private schools use MAP as well. So if the kids are taking the assessment there, we can use that data. They don't have to come and do another test at our school. I think parents really appreciate that we give them that choice with assessments. So if you're interested in enrolling at Mat-Su Central School, you should create a parent view account is what it's called. And that is with the Mat-Su School District. Fill out a registration form with them. If you're a new student to Mat-Su Central, you'll be prompted during that registration process to fill out a Google form. I'm going to tell you right now, we have about 630 new kids on that Google form, which is just crazy to me. We're going to do this. It's going to be good. But by filling out that form, it just helps us learn more about your kids and just to make sure that we can offer the best support possible that you're needing. So I'm going to warn you with that 630 new kids, it's a little bit of a wait for us to schedule all those kids with advisors, but we'll get through it. The nice thing about if you're enrolled in a private school, you guys can start school. You don't have to have your ILP done before you can go start school. Obviously, you have to have that done before you can get reimbursed and things. We have to have those classes in the ILP. But yeah, so we're looking forward to working with you, and I look forward to answering some more questions afterwards. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Stacy. I really appreciate it. Our next speaker is Kim Berge, I apologize, Director of Raven Homeschool. Kim.
Thank you, Sarah, for the introduction. Welcome, everyone. Like Stacy said, thank you for taking time on a beautiful sunny summer evening. We know how valuable those are this summer. So just to keep moving forward and to say thank you for your interest in knowing what's available for your children. As the director here at Raven, I've been working in the homeschool arena since 2000, way long time ago. I've been a homeschool parent as well as working in homeschool, both at the teacher level and now at the administrative level. So I've been doing this for a very long time, multiple different programs. I'm very familiar with all of the different statewide programs because I've helped to operate many of them. In addition to that, I've also been a private school parent as well. So I understand your perspective there. To give you a little bit of background for Raven in particular, we started over 20 years ago. We've been doing this a very long time. We started when the state decided to do away with Alyeska Central School. We took that on, and then we've transitioned it to where it is today. We are a statewide program, just like Stacy's program. So we're a little bit different in the fact that we are connected to the Yukon-Koyukuk School District, where our headquarters are based in Fairbanks. I'm actually based in the Wasilla office, and we have offices all around the state. We have offices in Anchorage, Eagle River, Wasilla, Juneau, Fairbanks, Delta. And so there's lots of opportunities to connect with us depending on which region you're in. And we do make special trips to communities where we have a large population. So for example, we've got a significant number of students in Sitka. So we have teachers that travel on a regular basis to Sitka. And we're looking at expanding that as we get more groups of families in different areas. Once we reach a certain number of families, then we can do that, look to see if it's time to open another office. So as far as some of the details of our program go, yes, we do accept full-time private school enrolled students. Our allotment is $2,700. We do provide an additional $600 above and beyond the allotment for internet. And if you have a preschooler, we have a $325 preschool stipend because we want those little ones to get a really good start coming into school. So we want to be able to help parents with that. We have a ton of activities that we offer at our sites. Some of those are with our instructional partners. Some of them are provided by our staff. We also offer training for parents, so you can help gain and grow and hone your own homeschooling skills based on whatever you need. We have a parent advisory committee, so our parents have a huge say in what we offer in our programs. Additionally, we have academic counselors that work specifically with your high school kids. They'll also work with the middle school kids if there's stuff that they need assistance with, but right now their primary focus is with those high school kids. Our students have access to all different types of sports, either through their local school, through club sports. Just like Stacy was saying, there's a ton of opportunities there and how you build that individual learning plan and customize it for your own individual child. Additionally, our high school kids have access to career and technical ed courses. College courses are another one that we have a lot of students access those. Our big thing that we try to make a really concerted effort for parents is to make sure that you have the freedom to choose. And that's freedom to choose the courses that are on that learning plan, the freedom to choose the curriculum that you use for the instruction of your children, and for you to be able to work with your child and set that learning path based on their strengths and their areas of interest. We know that we have some kids that have super great passions, and we want to be able to facilitate that and help you as parents facilitate that. Our primary role is to empower and support parents so that you guys have everything that you need to provide that excellence in homeschooling for your kids, whether you're using a combination of private school and traditional homeschool or whatever combination, whatever path works best for you. Let me see if there's anything else. Stacy specifically mentioned instructional partners. We have that same kind of thing where we have instructional partners. Ours are all around the state because we have them in each of the communities. We also serve a large number of families that are in rural Alaska. So we have those connections in those rural areas as well. As far as enrolling goes, again, we don't have a deadline for enrollment. Our enrollment is open. That is a requirement of state law for us. So you can either check out our website at ravenhomeschool.com. You can click on the Enroll Now button there. You can call if you're located specifically in Anchorage. You can call the Anchorage office at 907-644-8590. If you're out Chugach Eagle River Way, we also have an office in Eagle River, and you can reach out to them as well. A lot of families, the most common question that I'm asked is, well, what is required for work samples? Again, like Stacy mentioned, if you are proficient in reading, writing, and math, that requirement is a little bit different. For the majority of our families, we do ask for one work sample per course per quarter. And that is because we have to meet the state requirement to show academic progress through the course of the year. And there are no restrictions on allotment other than we do require that you purchase your core curriculum. If you're purchasing that out of pocket, that be purchased first, and then the rest of the allotment is allowed to be used for other things as long as your child is showing growth and making progress towards proficiency. With that, just know that you're welcome to call. We're happy to answer any questions that you might have. We know it's always hard when families have to make a change.
Thank you so much. That's a wonderful reminder, Kim. Our final speaker is Lee Sloan, Administrator of the Green Room Learning Community. The information Lee shares will be of particular interest to Anchorage families that have banked allotment rollover funds that they don't want to lose. It's an option for staying within your current ASD correspondence school while still getting a more personal education. Lee, your program is a kind of hybrid learning pod. This concept may not be familiar to most families, and around the state, many of these have organically popped up, including yours in 2022. Can you explain how it works?
Yeah, I thank you for having me. I'm a little bit different than a charter school. So a lot of people think, first of all, charter schools are new to a lot of people. A lot of people don't know you can access charter schools and get the funding you need for an alternative education. And now we see that you can get that funding. But sometimes you want more instruction than you can provide at home. And you want a little more of that school feel. And that's what I have. It's a hybrid pod, and these are operating all over, especially Anchorage. Then there's some, I'm sure, in other communities. But you know, I'm a huge school choice advocate. I think a lot of everybody on this call is. You know, it's up to the parents to be able to choose what their students need, and this is the way we do it in Alaska, is through these charter schools to get the funding for it. Now, I'm a homeschool parent. I also have my background in teaching. Gifted education was my emphasis. And so I've taught in public schools. I've taught in private settings. I'm a homeschool mom. And so what I did was I wanted to solve a problem for my family. I realized my kids were getting to the age where they needed more structure. I wanted them to learn from other people besides me. So I started a learning pod in my home. It was a micro school, you might say. And that was great. That was during COVID. We got to stay with our little tiny group, and it was helpful for them to have other friends to come alongside them in their learning. And then took a semester off, and then we actually expanded to have a school at a church out here, Radiant Church on Boniface. We were able to have a school, and we started last year from 6th through 12th grade. We did kind of a one-room school situation there, and we got other teachers to teach different subjects. And my goal was to have it be affordable for people who are enrolled in some of the Anchorage, correspondence programs. And so I figured out a way that we could make it affordable, and that we could stay under the allotment of some of these larger programs, offering 4 days, up to 4 days a week. So a lot of programs, they'll have 2 days a week. We do offer 2 days. So we offer Monday and Wednesday. We do direct instruction. And so we have people coming in and teaching in their subject field. And this year we've actually expanded all the way down to kindergarten, because we got teachers who actually wanted to be involved in this program. We got teachers coming from Christian school backgrounds. We got teachers coming from public school background, a diverse group of teachers to come together, and they're really awesome, amazing teachers. And so we thought we're going to level this up this year. And what we do is Mondays and Wednesdays, we have the direct instruction. So you're going to pay a little bit more for Monday and Wednesday. It's about $400 per class. And we have about 3 hours of instructional time per class with that direct instruction, with the teacher teaching your kid. And then what we have on Tuesday and Thursday primarily is we have independent practice, facilitated learning. So basically what you'd be doing at home in homeschool, it's a little more structured when you have to go to a school and you have time for math, you have time for, writing and all those different things. but it's in a more structured environment, because sometimes, let's face it, it's hard for us parents to get our kids up, to get them dressed, to get them doing their schoolwork. And sometimes, we have situations where we actually have to work and we have other things that we have to do. So we really want them to be in an environment where they can be more structured, they can actually get their school done, and they can make some friends. And so I really want it to be a family feel, and a way where we can serve you parents, that the parents aren't serving the school, but that we're serving you. So we did expand. We have a kindergarten, we have a 1st through 3rd grade group cluster, we have a 4th through 6th grade, and then we have a 7th through 12th grade group. Now you might say, those are pretty big age gaps. But when I was in school, what I learned was something called differentiation. And if you're a homeschool parent, you do this all the time. You have multi-age kids in your home, and you have to differentiate the curriculum to fit their needs. And that's exactly what these teachers know how to do. So they're able to differentiate according to needs. And what I didn't anticipate, and what actually happened last year, was that, everybody's at different levels in different subjects. You might have a kid who's great at reading, but not so good at math. And the list goes on, right? Well, in a traditional school, you have to take them out of the regular school environment, and you have to kind of isolate them, maybe make them feel a little uncomfortable because they're with peers that are not really their age and all that. Well, in this context, it is so natural, because you're already with peers that are not your age necessarily, and not your ability level. So to differentiate an environment like this actually works really well. And so we had, some kids who were gifted in one area and struggled in another. It didn't really matter, because we were all kind of working at our own pace. We were able to differentiate the needs according to the kids, and then make great friends along the way. So that was really fun last year. And we are definitely, like I said, we're definitely leveling up this year. You can go all the way from Monday to Thursday. You could do a 4-day program. And then we have a separate program on Friday, which is a co-op. It's a Christian co-op, and it operates on its own. The whole family comes, and you can do that. If you homeschool and you don't really need another program, we do have that fellowship where you can get to know more families and stuff. But otherwise, we do that first through 12th, or kindergarten through 12th grade. Drop-off program, and it's from 9 a.m. to about 2 or 2:30, depending on the day. We have a couple of different electives, but we really try to focus on those core subjects. So that takes a lot of the pressure off of you. If you've never homeschooled before, you can have this set up for you. If you just have the allotment, let's say you don't have the funding to do all 4 days, you can just do the 2 days. And then when they're at home, they can work on the homework from those days. Some people have actually signed up for just Tuesday, Thursday, because they already have a curriculum they're already doing, and they want to just have their kid in a structured environment to work on some things while they can get some things done too, maybe go to work or do other things too, and just a way for them to have other friends. So there's so many different ways you can use this program. You can look it up at thegreenroomlearning.com. And the other thing I wanted to say is, I don't want to leave anybody out, because it's hard to find all of these different kinds of hybrid programs in one area. Like, there really isn't one website that shows all these things. So I want to mention a couple of them to you besides my own, because you do have choices, and there are different places around the city. So Eagle River Homeschool Classes is one over on the Northeast, Eagle River. The Green Room Learning, we are on, I would consider East Side, thegreenroomlearning.com. We have AK Homeschool Classes. That's an older one that's been around for a while. It's downtown. It operates at Presbyterian Church. A friend of mine started one on the south side called Gather Alaska, which is gatherak.org. And she's doing a couple different co-ops, as well as a hybrid model for upper ages. And then the workshop Anchorage.org. The workshop has a lot of different classes that you can pick and choose from and create your own creative learning experience. So I wanted to mention those as well as my own. There are lots of great plans. What I would do if I were you is kind of like find the way you want to learn, like look into some of these resources that you have. Maybe you want to be completely independent and do it on your own. You can be independent and you can still come to one of these schools, or you can just do it all on your own, order your own curriculum, figure out how you want to do it, and then find the plan that meets your needs. If you want to do full-time private schooling, you're going to want to choose one of these programs that meets your needs. And I know that website that APF has developed, they're going to help you choose the right correspondence program to go with the other programs that you might choose. So thank you guys for having me. Let me know if you have questions.
Thank you so much, Lee. That was an excellent, and I'm very excited about your option. Again, thank you for sharing credit. There's so many different statewide options that we just couldn't have possibly fit everyone in a webinar. We will take the remaining time for questions. Please type your questions in the Q&A box. We've certainly seen some activity there already. If your question is for one particular speaker, please indicate that with your question. And I pass it to Bethany. What is our first question?
All right, thanks, Sarah, and thanks all of you for your attention and for the great questions you've been submitting so far. So first question, and this one doesn't have a name on it, so I will let whoever wants to address this, and I'm happy to try as well. But please explain why allotments differ between schools. It appears that Family Partnership has the highest allotment, approximately 40% higher. Looks like Kim unmuted herself. You want to take a go at it, Kim?
Sure. That's a question we get a lot. Because allotments do vary by program, and it really depends upon the structure of the school. So Family Partnership is actually a charter school, so their funding comes different. And every class that you sign up for in a program like that, the way it's reported to the state impacts what type of money comes from the state for that student. And many of the charter schools are set up so that those students, when they're there, are actually getting put through what's called the foundation formula. So that school actually gets more money per student than a traditional homeschool program does. And that extra funding allows them to have more funding to give as an allotment.
Does the school board or the school district or the administration, who ultimately gets to decide what percentage of the funds stay within the school administration versus what amount goes to the parents for an allotment?
It depends on which district you're in, who makes that decision. In some districts, it's the superintendent that makes that decision. In some districts, it's the school board that makes that decision. It depends on the individual district.
So like with everything else we've been talking about here, there's 12 different answers, right?
You are correct.
Stacy?
And in our school district, the superintendent and the administration makes those decisions, but we base it on, and the reason why we raised our allotment, we base it on like what percentage of our families actually use the allotment. And we ran numbers last year, and with that $3,000 for high school, $2,600 for K-8, only about 25% of our families used that full allotment. So, that's how we kind of make those decisions. Like, do we really need to increase the allotment? 75% aren't really using it, so so that's kind of how our school district looks at it.
Okay, great. Thank you guys. All right, next question about timing. Can I register for a program today and be eligible to be reimbursed for those funds when I am enrolled in your program? So I'm assuming they're saying, like, if I register for a private school today or an online school or some kind of extracurricular, like right now at this point in July, and then can I enroll in your school later and be reimbursed for those?
Yeah, so the fiscal year starts July 1st. So any receipts that you bring to Mat-Su Central, we can go back to July 1st and reimburse you for internet and different things, different school supplies that you bought over the summer to get ready for the school year. And then it does it, like I said, with private school, it's with our regular homeschool families that need curriculum. We want to get them in as soon as possible because we want them to get started with their education. We don't want parents sitting at home not being able to teach their kids. But private schools, if you're going there, you can go go when they start school. And like I said, you could enroll obviously with us before September 30th if you want allotment. But it doesn't really matter when you get in from those times.
And that's the same for our program. You can enroll in whichever private school you wish to enroll in. And then once you are fully enrolled with us, then you can start submitting things for reimbursement.
Okay. Lee, we've got a couple of questions about your program. So can you please explain how allotment money can be used to pay for the green room. And they're asking also for some clarity regarding the 4-day drop-off option. Is it only for 4th grade and up, or how does that work?
Yeah, actually, we have 1st through 3rd grade is the 2-day option. 4th grade and up is 4-day option. Yeah, for how it works is because we're not, we use this term school loosely. We are a cohort of independent vendors, and that's the way a number of these operate around the city. And so that means we're not a private school, which means we can receive money. The teachers receive it directly. And so we don't receive it as a school. You have to allot that money to the individual vendors. All of our teachers are individual vendors, and that's how you would pay them from your allotment. So you would designate that money for that class through your charter school. So you can do that through some of the ASD programs. If you're feeling like you can't leave ASD right now, and you have a lot of rollover money and you want to use that, I'm in that situation as well. And so I can still use that for my program. Did that cover everything?
We'll have them ask another question if not, so.
Okay.
Thanks. Okay, do any of you have programs that work with ANSEP Acceleration Academy enrollees?
Yes, we do. We have students that attend ANSEP.
Okay. Stacy, do you as well?
Yep. Yeah, we had, I think, three or four kids that, were able to get into ANSEP last year.
Okay, great, thank you. And for those on the line who aren't familiar with that, that's the Alaska Native Science and Engineering Program. My understanding is you don't have to be Alaska Native to participate in that unless that's changed. Is that right? Yep. And so if it's something you're interested in, it's a very popular program. But yeah, one worth mentioning for sure. So good question. Someone asked a question that I will answer. They ask please discuss how we can participate in the lawsuit. So the lawsuit is already underway. It was been underway since January. So you can't join the lawsuit, but anyone who is using a correspondence program within the state of Alaska, particularly to pay for private school, but really for anything using that allotment is going to be covered by what the results are of this lawsuit. So it basically applies to the constitutionality of this law, of the allotment programs, to use those funds to pay private vendors, private schools, private entities with your allotment funds. The idea is that the funds are being reimbursed and going through you as the parent. They're not directly paying a private school. You are the decider of how those funds are being used, and they're going through you as the parent. So that's the basis of that lawsuit. So hopefully that answers that question. Let's see, a couple of you mentioned testing. So is testing required for all students? How do you administer, this is the key one for you guys, how do you administer testing for students who live in Anchorage if your school is based somewhere else?
So I talked a little bit about assessments. So assessments are hard because parents are able to opt out of taking assessments, but it's also a requirement that we know if kids are proficient or not. So it's hard. It's hard to manage this, and it's very confusing for families. Like I said, we give choice. So we have a lot of different assessments they can do. The iReady assessment is something that can be administered at home. We started with ExactPath during COVID because nobody could come in and do any kind of testing. So that could be administered at home. And this year we switched to iReady because our school district's using iReady and magnetic reading. So that is an assessment that can be done at home, and we're training parents right now how to do it. And so so that would be an easy fix.
Kim?
We also have assessment options that are administered in the home. And again, parents have choice in which assessments they choose to participate in. We do encourage parents to give their children practice with assessment because what we have gotten from feedback from parents is that we've had kids that have gone all the way through the program and never participated in assessment. And then they got out into the real world and they realized that as part of their job, they have to take these online assessments regularly to build their skills for their work. And they were struggling with it because they didn't have those test taking practice time and skills. So we encourage parents to do it, even if it's just to get the kids that practice skills. Pick your best subject, pick your worst subject, just take the time to learn some good strategies. And, you know, if you get results as part of that, yes, and you can use it as part of what you're doing, that's fantastic. If it's something that, you know, isn't really a true given data point because of the day, the time, the whatever for the assessment, then, you know, you have to take that all into consideration.
So Kim, I may have missed it, but is there a place in Anchorage that folks can test?
Yeah, just right at the main office.
Okay, the main office in
They
Anchorage. Okay,
Test at the office or they can test in the home.
okay, right. Yeah.
And we
just
also,
basically mentioned that one.
like Sarah mentioned earlier, will accept test results from other organizations.
Okay, gotcha. Perfect. Okay, what support does your school have for children with IEPs or 504 plans, if any?
We have special ed through homeschool, it's consultative services. So we have that available. You get to work one-on-one with the special ed teacher. In addition to that, if you have a child that needs to receive services at their local neighborhood brick and mortar school, we set up those agreements so that you can do that as well.
Okay, and thank you for that. The person who asked the question about Homestead, there's the answer to that one for you. So, yeah, Stacy, do you guys support IEPs?
Yep, we have advisors that specialize in students that have IEPs. So we specialize at grade levels in our building too. So we're K-3 advisors, and then we have 4-7 advisors and high school advisors. We have a tele speech therapist, so they could do that speech therapy online. We also have an in-person speech person. So if a student, struggles to sit on a computer and get speech that way, they can come into the office and do speech. We have OTPT. Those are done at the boundary schools. That would be a little more difficult if you enroll with Mat-Su Central, because you wouldn't be able to get that service at a boundary school in Anchorage. You would have to come out to our area to get OT and PT speech in any of the IEP services with the advisor you could do over the phone.
So like so many of the answers, it depends, right? It's all very customized and centralized. It depends on your family and your situation, right? And your special needs.
Yeah, and like for us, we offer those programs wherever you're at in the state. You don't have to go to a local boundary school or anything like that.
And we have had several special needs students in our schools. It's just kind of a matter of talking with the teacher and seeing if this is a good fit, based on their needs, and seeing if they could handle your kid's particular special needs. So yeah, one-on-one basis.
Yep, one-on-one, case by case. So this one, you stated that ASD families will lose their allotments that have been rolled from a previous year if they transfer to a different correspondence school. Is that a law, or can it be changed by a vote? Who knows the answer to that one?
Right now, that's in state statute that if you're going to roll them over, you have to roll them over for the duration of the student's enrollment with the school. Once they exit the school, you're no longer required to hold them in a rollover account. And that is state statute. If you want me to look it up, I will.
So no, I don't think we need it up, but the answer to the question is yes, of course. If it's in state statutes, a state law, then that just takes legislative action to change that. So if the legislature were to pass a law to say that you could keep it as long as you go within, the state of Alaska or a particular region or whatever they wanted to change it to, that's something that could be changed then, right?
Yes, it would have to be changed legislatively the way that
Right.
the statute is currently written.
Right, yeah, because it's not a regulation. Based upon timing, is there a need or advantage for families to rush to sign up with your programs? I mean, you mentioned the enrollment dates in order to receive allotment, so like the end of September. Is there a time for families to see how the roller coaster levels off a bit, is the way this person put it, and withdraw from ASD, let's say at the beginning of September?
Yep, that would be just fine. There's the hard deadline is, like Stacy said, right there at the end of September, just because then you get into what is called the count period, and then other schools can claim different portions. And so it impacts how much money is available to be able to give to the family.
And I'll just weigh in here to share something that I have heard via experience, that sometimes it takes a while for records to be transferred. So if you decided to wait till one of the very last days and transfer, then you would perhaps, you might be in jeopardy of your transfer not happening in time because of the records transfer that's required. So, kind of to be a little safer, you might want to target mid-September because I think they have 10 days to respond to a records request. So that might be the safest thing to do if you're looking at a kind of drop dead date there. Okay, next question. Does your school have a list online of private schools, tutors, programs, vendors, et cetera, that are approved for your program?
We publish some of ours online, not all of them online. It just, because we're getting new ones all the time, and it would take one person, it would be their full-time job to just keep that up to date because we have so many vendors. And that's where building that relationship with your advisory teacher is super critical, because if they know you have an interest, they know all the resources and they have access to the master list, and they can get you whatever resource you need. If you are looking for American Sign Language and you want something local in person, we can find it for you.
We partner with most Anchorage private schools. Not all of them are vendors of ours. Like I know there was a Grace Christian question in here. Some of the private schools don't want to become instructional partners, but that doesn't mean their kids can't be enrolled there and work with us. It just means that the only classes that can be reimbursed are basically their extracurricular stuff, their music and PE and things they do outside of the school. We can't reimburse for any of the courses at the school since they're not a vendor of ours.
So I think that's an important point to foot stomp, is that just because the private school that you're interested in doesn't have a direct partnership with one of the correspondence programs in the state, that doesn't mean that you can't enroll in the correspondence program and get allotment funds to use for a variety of other educational situations that you may be dealing with your child. Extra possibilities for them, right? Whether that's just plain old tutoring or extracurriculars. So that's a great point to emphasize. If my child is enrolled in your statewide program, will they be able to participate in ASD school sports or other local activities?
That is a kind of a tricky question, because if they're middle school and elementary age children in Anchorage School District, it's up to the principal at the individual school. If they're high school level kids, they can participate in their local district of residence school, but not an out of boundary school. Does that make sense? So if they live on the east side of town and their local school is East High School, that's where they would have to participate. Otherwise, they have to have a boundary exemption in place by the boundary exemption deadline, and there's a specific form for that, in order to participate at the out of boundary school.
Okay, Stacy, anything different to add to that? And then we'll go to Lee. No. Lee, you should have an easy answer to this.
You can do whatever you want.
Right, it's a little bit different for
Fine with it.
right, because you're part of ASD. So right, so
We're not part of anything.
Right, but you're the student, the parents who are on this webinar are part of ASD, and if they stay with ASD, then of course they can participate, right? So. And in fact, folks that join Lee's learning community could be part of a correspondence program in another part of the state. They don't have to be part of ASD's correspondence program, right?
Part of no correspondence program, if you want.
No, that's right. There is also the independent homeschooling option in the state of Alaska.
It's about half the cost of a private school.
Private school. Okay, there you go. That's good to know. That's good for them to know. So, allotment restrictions. Some of you kind of touched on this, but the question is more specific about what are the allotment restrictions in terms of how you can use it, what it can be spent on, and how do those differ from ASD? So, obviously you mentioned the religious, the faith-based curriculum. Can you go into a little bit more detail on that and explain the differences between based upon your understanding of the way that ASD manages that versus how it might happen at your school?
We don't put any restrictions on percentages, I guess. There's no percentages. If you're full-time enrolled with Matthew Central School and going to a private school, there's not like 50, we don't do like a 50% only can be used at that private school. As long as your kid's proficient, as long as they're not using religious curriculum, you pretty much can use that allotment. You can use your whole $3,000 to pay for the tutoring that you receive through those private schools.
That's the same with us. We don't have any restrictions on ours.
And
Okay.
I know some, I don't know, I think some homeschools make parents or make students take extra courses. We use the courses that they have at the private school as the courses. I know years ago, we used to have to kind of make up different names, and they'd have math at the school, but we had to call it something else when I first started 10 years ago. And now we're able to use those courses that they already have, so they don't have to take another extra math class at home to fulfill their ILP, to fulfill that. Yeah.
Lee, a question for you. And so I'm going to clarify for the questioner and then let you expand on this, Lee. So the questioner said the green room said they would preserve allotments over in the reduction. The green room didn't say they preserve allotments. I said that if you have allotments through ASD, that you would be able to keep and preserve those allotments if you use the green room, because of the fact that they're not a private school in the traditional sense, or they're not a correspondence program. Basically, you can receive allotment just like a regular homeschooler would, and then use that part of that to pay for your fees at the green room or another sort of learning pod. But since you have accumulated your allotment at ASD, and as long as you stay enrolled at ASD, you get to keep your allotment. The key here for people to understand is that if you transfer to one of these non-ASD schools and you have banked allotment funds, you do have to forfeit those. So Lee, do you want to explain a little bit more about how they might be able to use those funds at your school?
Yeah, I mean, you can essentially get you could possibly get 5 days a week if you want to come with your kid on the 5th day, especially if they're in 4th grade and up. And I noticed somebody else said something about, are you considering expanding it down to the younger grades? We will consider that. If that's something that you want, you can actually request that through our website, and we will consider if we have enough number of students. But the key issue there is those students at younger ages need more time. And so we want to make sure that we give them the full amount of instructional time. So anyway, but yeah, we have nothing to do. We're not a charter school. We just are able to receive funds. So any of the allotments that you get through any of the charter or correspondence schools or any of that, you can apply toward our program. Our teachers will have to go then and be approved as vendors at your program. So that's the work we do, that we say, hey, we can commit to you that we will go ahead and make sure our vendors are approved through your school. Does that?
Right. Thank you, Lee. All right. So and this is the question, and so certainly anybody can weigh in, but I will as well. But so for full-time students in private school with rollover funds and family partnership, can you verify that you are not able to pay for private vendors, activities, music? So the question for that is if you continue to be in full-time. So if you've been in full-time in the past and you have rollover funds, and certainly anybody can correct me if I'm wrong, but we talked to the lawyers about this. If you enroll next year with ASD part-time, enroll with a private school part-time and stay in family partnership or one of the other correspondence programs in ASD, if you enroll in a private school, three classes or less, I believe is how they're defining that, then you can keep your rollover funds within ASD. But if you enroll 4 classes or more with ASD, they consider that full-time. And so then you don't get allotment funds. Now you don't forfeit your allotment funds. You just don't get any allotment funds going forward. You don't forfeit your banked funds. You can continue to keep those, but if you enroll for next year with one of the schools outside of ASD, then yes, that's when you lose your funds, is once you enroll in a non-ASD correspondence program. Anybody have any clarification or anything that you think I got wrong on that based upon your interpretation of the memo? Are we all good? Does that make sense? Okay, just want to make sure, because that one's a little bit convoluted there. So, okay, so you mentioned the work samples, a couple of you did. What's the reporting process for families that aren't in your area for getting those work samples submitted?
So we have an online portal that parents can submit, and we're the same as Raven. We require 1 work sample per course. We also require a narrative, which I think is probably the most important thing that parents submit. Because not just a math test or a spelling test doesn't tell a lot, but we have parents just write, something that their kid's struggling with, something that their kid loves and is doing really well at. So that's that real quick narrative, 2-3 sentences about how their kid is doing in each of those courses. And then they submit a grade as well that is verified by the certified teacher that works at our school. But yeah, it's all done through a portal, really easy. They just submit it and it goes through the approval process with our advisors here.
Ours is very, very similar. We have an online parent portal we do have some families that are located remotely, and we still do paper pencil for them if they need to. But yeah, it's mostly submitted online, real simple process, and the approval is simple going through. A simple summary is the piece that we ask for, just to help us to understand what we're looking at as we're verifying grades.
Do any of you offer programs with middle school classes that go toward high school credits or accelerated credits from high school and college? And can you accommodate and guide that process through your program?
Yeah,
Yeah.
the last few years, we moved our 8th graders to our high school advisors because there was so much of this going on. You know, it started out where they could only do foreign language and math and English, and now it's pretty much wide open in our district of what middle schoolers can earn for high school credit. Obviously, with 6th and 7th, we're a little more leery, you know, that they're actually ready for Algebra 1 and ready for English 1. And some of them are at that age, you know, some 6th graders are totally ready for that. But yeah, so we've moved our 8th graders to our high school advisors because they are offering a lot of high school credit, and it's the possibilities are endless now. It's pretty wide open in our district.
That's the same for us. We have pretty much any content that a middle schooler is capable and wants to do for high school credit, they can do.
Okay, great. All right, next question. How can we completely take our children out from ASD, and does that take money out of their pockets? Well, if you enroll in one of these other programs, you would be, by virtue of enrolling in a correspondence program in another district, be removing your child from ASD. Yes, of course, then they would no longer receive the foundation formula funding for your child. It would go to the district where you're enrolling them. But a caveat to keep in mind is that if you do have rollover funds that you've accumulated during your time within one of the ASD correspondence programs, then you lose those. So that's important for folks to be aware of and to keep in mind. So, okay, I think we maybe have time for only a couple more questions here. Can you please address how vendors are utilized to supplement and support the family's ILP? Kind of a general question here, I would say, about how the programs work, I guess. I'm not sure.
So
Yeah,
oh, go ahead.
I was going to say that there's a huge vendor list, or, you know, there are instructional partners in the community, and each program kind of does their instructional partners a little bit different. We have those that are vetted and approved for direct payment. We have those that are parent pay vendors. And then we have those private vendors, which parents contract with individually. And so we've got 3 options in our district. And so it's one of those things where it really is up to the parent to choose what is that good match. Parents know their children best, and they can make that decision better than we can. Our job is to make sure that they have the information so that they can make those decisions. So if you're interested in piano lessons, here are all the piano vendors we have. You know, what fits best for you, your child, and your schedule. That's a parent's decision. It's not our decision. And so we really work to make sure parents have access to information so that they can make good choices for their kids, whether they're looking for high-end academics and support in that arena through tutors, whether they're looking for, you know, horse riding, whether it doesn't matter what they're looking for. It's just that we want it to be the best fit for them and their student.
Great, thank you.
It-
And this will be a fast answer, but it's important for families to understand this. Can a child be enrolled in more than one correspondence school during the school year? Short answer is no, but I will let Stacy and Kim explain that a little further so that everyone understands.
I mean, technically not at the same time, but technically
Right.
you could enroll with us, and that happens all the time. They enroll with
part-time.
us. If you leave
Part-time.
before count, or if you've used all of your allotment and you left at, you know, before November 1st, you could be required to pay back some of that money. Because technically, I mean, a family could enroll with us, use $3,000, move over to Raven, go with Kim, use their, you know, $2,700, which we want to make sure that's not what's happening, because that's not fair to everyone. So yeah, but we require parents to pay back if they leave before count.
It-
And the
Sarah,
county,
we get-
sorry. Yeah.
Really quickly, Sarah, are we going to get cut off at 8 o'clock or will it let us continue?
It'll let us continue as long
Okay.
as we want to keep answering
Okay.
questions.
All right. Thank you. I just wanted to make sure. And if anyone needs to cut off, just, just raise your hand. Let me know you're going to step away. So, but Kim, do you want to answer that question for your school?
I was just gonna say it's the same at our school. If you leave before the end of count, then you have to pay back the things that we have purchased. So
Yeah.
it just is, it preserves the funding and makes it equitable for everyone that's enrolled.
Right. So I think that the heart of the person's question was probably, can I be enrolled and get an allotment at more than one school? And that's what you can't do, right? So you can be enrolled and you could leave one and go to the other, but again, you may have to pay back, and then you may not be able to even be eligible for allotment at the new school, depending on when you enroll there, right? So so it's best not to play that game. In other words, unless you're truly transferring, for legitimate reasons, right? So
Right, and I don't know, just so parents understand, it's because we're both public schools and you
Right.
can't be enrolled full-time in more than one public school, and for full-time is 4 courses.
and that's actually leads to the very next question that someone asked, which was how does the 3 versus 4 classes, part-time versus full-time, translate for elementary school children who take only a singular class? And I think that's really a question directed more toward the private school situation, and perhaps for Lee's program. Lee, do you want to take that one?
So I guess they're asking, what are they asking? I'm sorry.
Yeah. So how does taking 3 classes, Anchorage School District considers taking 3 classes part-time and taking 4 classes
right.
full-time. So how does
Right,
that translate for
that doesn't
elementary?
apply- Yeah, that doesn't apply to our school because we're not a private school. We are individual vendors, and you're paying individual people to do these different classes with your kids.
So that's a really important distinction for the learning pods and the micro schools and the learning communities like Lee's, where it's not a private school. So it doesn't matter, what it's considered 3 or 4. So you're technically homeschooling, but it's just kind of like group homeschooling with teachers. So that's kind of how that fits into that. So, but if you're talking about an actual private school, for the person who answered the question, that's going to be up for ASD to decide how they want to handle that, as far as, if you enroll in a private school and they consider you're taking one single class as an elementary student because they don't go from class to class to class, you're just taking 2nd grade, then ASD is going to have to determine how they want to try to break that out, because it's going to be a distinction it's going to be, that they're going to have to make. So next question. I'm sorry, go ahead.
I'm gonna say I can add to that just a little bit
Sure.
to help parents clarify. When they look at it from the elementary perspective, ASD looks at it as 1 hour of time at the elementary level is considered one class. So if you have a student that goes in at 10 o'clock for reading and they stay through 11:30 lunch, that's an hour and a half. That's considered 2 classes.
Great. Thank you for clarifying that, Kim. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
Somebody asked a question that they said they feel like is a crazy question, but it's not a crazy question at all. I think it's an important one to pass on to everybody. And what they said, it's something that, particularly if you've come from another state, you may not be familiar with this, but they said, if a family wanted to withdraw from ASD and just stay in private school with no other program, do families need permission or need to file paperwork with the state to prove they are still getting schooling, like a truancy issue? And the answer is no. And I will let the school administrators weigh in on this, but Alaska has what's called independent homeschooling, which means you don't have to register at all with the state. And the same is true if you just decide to put your child in private school from the beginning. The state doesn't have to know your child even exists if that's your choice. That's one of the nice things about being in a free state like Alaska, is that you do have the option to make those decisions for your family, for your child, without having to involve the state. So anyone want to weigh in on that?
You hit the
No,
nail
and-
right on the head, Bethany.
Okay.
Yeah, and sometimes, if there's a family who really feels strongly about assessments and they want nothing to do with it, and sometimes they don't want us to test their kids, they don't want us even to know if they're proficient, like we have no idea if these kids can read. It's a problem. Like that's a problem when we're educators. And so sometimes I'll let parents know. I'm like, do you know that Alaska, you can independently homeschool? I mean, you don't get allotment, which I know is not great, but then you have complete freedom to do what you want with your kids. And I think a lot of families don't know that. So it is an important aspect of Alaska.
Yeah, I mean, not so many other states offer that option. It is something that makes us very special. And people who come from other states kind of have their mind blown by that sometimes, I think. So spread the word that it's your kids, and you get to decide what you want to do with them, right? So I did want to point out, and Sarah, if you could just refresh the chat for us. So we've been very nice. It's been very nice here that we've been able to have Kim Berge and Stacy McIntosh and Lee Sloan with us talking about a few of the options. But there are many other correspondence programs in addition to these. These were the folks who responded first to my request for a webinar, but lots of others responded afterwards. So Cyberlinks, Focus, Denali Peak. There's I would say there's probably at least 15, if not 20 other statewide correspondence programs in the state. And they're all pretty competitive. Some of them, like I said earlier, have very small groups and, more personalized. Some of them are bigger. I saw one of them I think maybe just today or within the last week or two, published one entire page on their website about how they accommodate private school students. So there's a lot of different options out there. So that website that Sarah just published in there kind of links to some of them. And again, if you are a representative of one of those correspondence programs and all your information is not there, let us know and we'll get it updated for you. A couple other people asked about they weren't able to attend the first part of the recording, or can they share it? Yes, it's being recorded. Again, this is going to be on our website. It's also going to be recorded on Facebook. Feel free to share that with people who were not able to participate and go back and watch the beginning of this. I'm sorry that we weren't able to get to all the questions. We've got to a fair number of them. Again, we have this website that I mentioned that we're going to be rolling out within the next couple of weeks, and hopefully we'll answer some questions there as well. I will let Sarah go ahead and close us up, and she's going to show you the QR code where you can sign up to get more information as we continue on with learning about and expanding school choice options for Alaska's families.
Thank you, Bethany. That was the question I wanted to answer. Is it being recorded? And yes, it is. It'll be posted on our website very shortly. Thank you so much, Stacy, Kim, Lee, for joining us tonight and sharing your knowledge. There have been a lot of changes to Alaska's correspondence programs recently, and there are likely to be others in the future. And so I am going to share a QR code with you, and I will also add these links to the chat. Please scan that QR code to sign up for more information, as well as to watch our previous webinar with the Institute for Justice Lawyers in the case we mentioned. Thank you so much again for joining us tonight. Well, we will leave this on the screen, and I hope you have a fantastic evening.
Thank you, guys. Have a good night.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you. Have a great night, everyone.
Good night. Thank you.